here this week, and my next guest would have loved to have been here on the air in Baltimore as he was at WBAL TV back in the late 80s when I was covering the Skipjacks, and he was running around with Vince Bagley and Chris Thomas and all those guys there. He has been out in San Francisco now for the better part of 3 decades, 31 years of TV news. He's local, but he's out in San Francisco at KPIX, and a Richmond guy and a Virginia guy, but he spent a little time here in Baltimore. We welcome Vernon Glenn home for all the wrong reasons except for the Orioles. Man, Raiders put a little sting on the Ravens on Sunday, and I know you were there covering it for back in the Bay Area, and it's great to have you on. How you been, Vern?
I've been pretty good, and anytime I get a chance to get back to Charm City, even if it's for a night and part of a day, I mean, it's a plus. I mean, because Baltimore was really special to me, and working with the late Chris Thomas and Vince Bagley, and then later on Jerry Sandusky. Man, it just always will be near and dear to my heart. It really was.
Well, I know, like, this was sort of an optional gig for you, right? It's like a little bit of a family trip, and, now you got the Giants playing the Mets on the East Coast as well. I mean, it never slows down in the Bay. You've been there 30 years, huh? Almost, right?
Unbelievable. You know what? I came out with a 3-year contract and a 3-year plan in 1990, and I never left.
Dude, it's a great place to be, man. I mean, Earthquakes aside and all that, it's one of my favorite places on earth, the Bay Area. And you've got more than a handful of things going. The Raiders are just one of many things happening there. Obviously, the Warriors, the Giants, all that good stuff. But this Raider team is maybe climbing up the charts a little bit. I mean, the one thing Oakland hadn't had in the Bay Area is a successful Raiders team in a decade and a half.
That's right. We're in, a quarter of the season is gone. And the Raiders are one of a handful of teams that are 3-1. The Raiders 3-1 for the first time since 2002, and 3-0 on the road, and that hasn't happened since the year 2000. So, and I've seen every single one of these games as I travel with the Raiders. We carry the game, so when I come out and go on the road and do these post game shows, it kind of pays the freight. But these Raiders. I mean, it was after that first couple of games, it's like, well, what's with the defense? But the offense was high-powered, a lot of weapons, and you saw it today. I mean, you saw the best of Michael Crabtree, a career 3-touchdown day, and each touchdown was better than the one before.
Yeah, I mean, he made a hell of a catch on the second one. Yeah, I mean, I had to sort of tip my cap and say, at some point you get covered, at some point you beat the coverage, at some point you just make a play. And, going back to the other side of the Bay, and I know, you had him in a 49er uniform. We were familiar with that at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. But, for this version of the Raiders, and look, I've known Jack for 2 decades. I saw Rod Woodson after the game. We knew coming into the season, this was going to be a better Raider team. But these are the measurements. It's these games at Tennessee, these games 3 time zones away where you fly across the country and have to play at 10 o'clock in the morning that make or break you. And certainly the Raiders in the final 3 minutes, for them to be down by 6 points, to have sort of pissed the game away, quite frankly. I mean, they had the game. They were in control. But to come back and win at the end, that really speaks volumes against the Ravens team that had some issues on the offensive side. But that last drive, that's impressive stuff, Vern.
Yeah, I thought that was a statement game to pretty much have the game and then give it away on the DeAndre fumble and then take it back at the very end. Showed really, really good resilience on the part of the Raiders and long-suffering Raider fans. They've always waited for the other shoe to drop. How are they going to lose it this time? Well, we've got back-to-back 1-point victories in the Raiders' favor for once, and now it's true conference play with the Kansas City Chiefs coming in next week.
Yeah,
but what a performance today on the road.
Yeah, Vern Glenn joining us here from KPIX. You can follow him out on Twitter at Vern Glenn, VernGlenn. And if you're a young old-timer like me, you remember Vern over TV Hill at WBAL back in the late 80s. He's been out in San Francisco. For the Raiders side, what do you love about the way they're playing right now? I mean, record aside, road aside, we've been sitting here breaking down the Ravens here all day, and we'll be doing that all week heading into this Redskin game. And I know that border war we got going on, for all the 49ers and Raiders Raiders. We don't see the Redskins very often either. We're going to see them this week. There's a lot to talk about for deficiencies for the Ravens. Certainly the offensive line wasn't up to snuff. But if I'm on the other side and on your side talking about the Raiders play, I would be concerned about the defense and stopping the run and stopping the pass. But certainly the offense looks like it's starting to churn a little bit. Needs a better running game. But Derek Carr looks like he's about to move into that next category of a guy who is going to have some opportunities to play in January and show his mettle.
Yeah, and he has so many weapons. I mean, he's got Seth Roberts got the first touchdown. Crabtree we've talked about. And then we haven't even spoken about Amari Cooper, who did get some key balls, did not find the end zone today, but there's just so many weapons, and if these guys have the ability to run the football a little bit more effectively, they'd really be up at the top. And I'm saying all that, and the Raiders are the number 2 total offense in the whole National Football League. So it's an offense that's really good that could get increasingly better. And I know the Raiders gave up over 400 yards of total offense to the Ravens, but it's a defense that I just sense is getting better week by week, especially with the presence of Jack Del Rio in those defensive meetings.
Well, and they've drafted as well to sort of fill in the holes. And, for Mac to be as quiet as he was the first 3 weeks, we knew he would be louder on Sunday. And then we saw what the Ravens' offensive line looked like on the left side with Hurst and with Ryan Jensen filling in. And it was very, very leaky, to say the least. I mean, it really took the Ravens all they could do. And Flacco's going to be sore this week. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to be sore. We talked to Khalil Mack after the game. He was relieved to have this first sack under his belt. He kind of considers himself kind of the leader of that defense, and he was frustrated that he hadn't had one. By that, had some hits on the quarterback, but he was very relieved. I also talked to Bruce Irvin after the game. He had a forced fumble in the game that led to the Raiders' second touchdown, and it's a team that's confident that they can play. But it's not like the old Raiders. The Raiders used to come in and say, hey, we're going to dictate. You're not going to like it. And if you don't like it, do something about it. Now, these Raiders are much more respectful of who they're playing. And they just scheme in the game plan, and they just roll out there and play. And go for it.
Jack Del Rio's doing a nice job out there. I mean, you've been there for all of this, right? I mean, you've been in the Bay Area for 30 years watching the 90s and the Gannon and the Chucky and, of course, the championship game that we won, which seems like yesterday, but it was 15 years ago, Vern. And since then, they haven't tasted a drop, really, since that era and winning that championship over Tampa down in San Diego. As much as we've had this drought for baseball here now that's ending with a big game against Toronto on Tuesday night here as well, we haven't had a lot of that. For the Raiders, there have been a lot of coaches. There's been a lot of heartache. There's been a lot of problems with the owner. Certainly the stadium's not perfect. Certainly they could be playing in Carson right now. Had a couple of the lords of football come in there, and, you wouldn't have that team to be covering right now. You'd be covering the 49. I mean, there's just been a lot of tumult with them, and none of it has led to a good result on the field. Jack seems to have sort of calmed that down a little bit. Now, it helps having a competent quarterback and a kid on the defense that might be headed to the Hall of Pretty Good at some point.
Yeah, there's been a revolving door of NFL head coaches at the Alameda headquarters, so it's nice to see some stability. There was a degree of head scratching when Reggie took over as general manager, and really nobody kind of knew where he was going. Now people know where he's going. So I like the moves he's made. I like the even Sean Smith, who had his defensive liabilities against the Saints, has essentially cleaned up this mess. He had a pick today in the end zone on a 2-point try. So I like where this team is going.
Well, they had a lot of money, right? I mean, they had their pick of the litter in the offseason to bring in people, and they gave money to guys like Kelechi Osemele. Now, you can argue how much money they spent and what they're getting, but they got a really good football player, and Lord knows, dude, you were out there. They didn't have a lot of really good football players. I haven't seen them have good football players in a long time.
Yeah, because, in fact, it's funny. I talked to Kelechi Osemele today, and standing on a step stool, by the way. And he could not have been happier over what happened today. He just, being the former Raven and being in the old house and then leaving and taking the free agent money, he also was truly satisfied at all of this. Hey, and look, let's put a perspective on this. It's always easy when you win. However, you do it. And very easily, this team could be 1-3. But the fact of the matter is, they're 3-1. And then the game of bravado all across the bay, the 49ers are 1-3. But I will say this is a great time to be a sportscaster in the Bay Area. 2 NFL teams, 2 baseball teams. The Warriors are underway. The Sharks have been playing for the last couple of weeks. It's just, and everything is overlapping. I mean, this is like being in a candy store.
By the way, you thought Stanford was something until Friday night, right? I mean, that was a mess, right?
Say again?
Stanford was okay until Friday night, too. That was a mess, right?
Yeah, Washington exposed them for, I guess, how bad they could be, because nothing was working in the David Shaw playbook on Friday night. Nothing at all. And it's funny. This is because they lost to a 10th ranked team. This loss could just produce echoes when it comes to the end of the year. They could be a one-loss team that's really penalized.
Vern Glenn joining us here, 31 years of TV news. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Vern Glenn, and you may remember him from WBAL. He's been at KPIX out in San Francisco. Anything you want to say on the baseball side? Because I know the Giants are playing a huge game on Wednesday. The Orioles are playing a huge game on Tuesday. It's amazing how quickly these postseason things sort of escalate, right? I mean, for an Oriole fan, 3 times in the last week we thought we're in, we're out, we're out, we're in. Certainly the Giants, there's been no bigger collapse, but all that goes away if they win on Wednesday night, and they're playing baseball this weekend. And the next thing you know, the Cubs are waiting, and maybe you win game 1. Who knows, right?
And that's funny the way baseball goes. I mean, the Giants, by record, were the worst team in baseball. And in the last 5 days, they have had commanding pitching performances. 4 of those 5 days, they've had 10 or more strikeouts in a game. And then they got a kid they call up. He outpitches Clayton Kershaw yesterday on Saturday. And then today, they win again, going away. So on Vin Scully's last official broadcast for the Dodgers.
Well, that warms every Giants fan's heart, right? That Vin's last call was a Giant victory that catapulted them into the playoffs in a game that they needed. It's almost like the storybook's being written for the even year for Bruce Bochy. Hey, the Orioles are the same way. They've made it every other year as well. But the Giants have folded up, and the Orioles have folded up. I mean, both of them in June or July looked like they were on track to meet. Now they're clawing their way and getting on airplanes and flying away with, but by the way, not playing bad baseball right now. I mean, this is what we see with these wild card teams. They're always sort of a ship adrift until they make that charge that both of these teams have made this week. I wouldn't be shocked to see them both playing this weekend, Vern.
Yeah, you know what? I'm all about, just get into the tournament. Just get in and then roll the ball out and see what happens.
Last thing for you, dude.
I'll give you this.
Sure.
I'm supposed to fly back to the Bay Area on Wednesday. The suits, they may change my flight and reroute me to New York for Giants-Mets.
And then next thing you know, you might be sitting in Chicago Friday at Wrigley Field having a beverage. Who knows, right?
I would not complain about that at all.
Well, I know, Vern, you came into Baltimore here, and this is sort of a second home for you, and I know you're from the Virginia area and all that. Hey, man, 30 years since you left. I never leave here. I live here. I live 2 blocks from Camden Yards. I see it, but I don't have the same recollection of what it looked like before, right? Like, I see the pictures even on the aerials, but for you to come back and sit in downtown Baltimore 30 years ago, there really has been a hell of a transformation here. Not just the empty seats in Camden Yards on the baseball side as well, but the fact that the football team so envelopes this community here, right?
Yeah, 30 years ago, I was just reminiscing with a couple of old Baltimore cronies at the stadium today, where we were standing. 30 years ago, there was nothing there. On that east side of the Inner Harbor, it was Badlands. And then the only reason to go to the Inner Harbor back when I was there was to go to the Rusty Scupper, or maybe the Galleria Mall, or maybe, I don't know, the power plant was down there. I guess the Babe Ruth Museum was down there, but that was it. We go over to Memorial Stadium for a $5 meal off our little press pass ticket. Yeah, so there was nothing like that at all 30 years ago.
Well,
so our Charm City has grown up.
Yeah, San Francisco's like that too, right? You go out there now, and you got to go down to Santa Clara to see the football team play. Obviously, the Giant Stadium's as beautiful as any place there is. What are they going to do with that stinkeroo over in the East Bay, man? I mean, at some point, and I know you get warm fuzzies about this because you work there every other Sunday. I love going to that dump, Vern. You know why? It reminds me of Memorial Stadium. I mean, it's like the last place that I can think of in this point in my life that I can walk into, and it smells like Memorial Stadium. The view, the way the plaza is built, the slope, it's the last thing that's like that. You get to work there every other week with the rats and the flies and all that good stuff.
Yeah, but behind Qualcomm Stadium is the second oldest stadium around, and it is a dump. I mean, it is time to do something with it. If I was king of all movement and decisions, here's what I would do. When the Warriors leave Oakland to come to San Francisco in 2019 to play in the new arena, I would move the A's to where the Coliseum Arena is right now, where Oracle is right now. Make a baseball-only 35-seat stadium there. You can do it. It can be done. And then that would leave the Coliseum Stadium just for the Raiders. Ronnie Lott is trying to get a group of investors together to take over the stadium and rebuild, revamp, and maybe for a couple of years while the stadium's being built, then you play in Santa Clara, or you play maybe Memorial Stadium over in Cal Berkeley. It can be done, but we're talking about dollars, big dollars of a much higher pay grade than both you and I.
Well, I mean, you covered some stuff here trying to get the team back. I mean, you were in Baltimore on the air during the years where it felt like we were never going to get a team here, right? And over in Oakland, it feels like, well, they're never going to leave or they would have left by now. And then here comes Vegas calling and all that. I mean, you don't want to lose a football team. And certainly the scenario you draw up on the East Bay, I don't think the NFL wants out of Oakland. I think they want Oakland to stay in Oakland. I think they're happy being in that market, especially since San Francisco fled 50 miles to the south.
Well, the fans are happy to have a team in Oakland. I think Mark Davis is going to kind of go with whatever best move works out for him. I think the pundits of the NFL would like to have an ownership take over that Raider team so they can do what they want them to do, which is obviously they'd like to share a stadium with the 49ers. That's what they like, much like what the Jets and the Giants do. That's what they really want. But as far as the Raiders, they're from Oakland. They belong in Oakland. They need to stay in Oakland. And I know there's all this talk about Las Vegas, but just keep them in the East Bay, please.
Hey, Vern, man, I always love the guys that are, my size. I mean, in the mid-five, and I know you give yourself a hard time about being a short guy the way Rosenthal and Kirchen and all those guys do. It's always great to catch up with you, man. I'm really glad you took the call, and we got to chat a little bit about the Bay Area sports, and certainly we're on the wrong side. 1 point away from 4-0, 3.5 minutes left to go in the game with a lead, with a 6-point lead. This is a rough week around here. This is a real challenge for the Ravens, but I would say this. I think the Raiders are going to win 10 games and make the playoffs. I think the Ravens are going to win 10 games and make the playoffs. And who knows, further down the line, we could see you out in the Bay Area at some point, my man.
That would be awesome. Isn't that funny how time flies? I can remember 30 years ago, Tim Kirchen, he was writing for the Baltimore Sun.
Absolutely.
Michael Wilbon, he was a columnist for the Washington Post. I mean, we're all, we're all kind of on the elevator up, and then, 30 years ago, we're still earning a paycheck and covering this stuff.
It's amazing. I haven't worked a day in my life. I mean, 30 years later, I'm still sitting here talking about Baltimore sports, Vern. It's crazy. Hey, man, great to have you on. Safe travels back to you. If you make it up to Citi Field, New York, it's a wonderful place to see a ball game. I know they're going to play a good one up there on Wednesday as well. Great to see you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, appreciate it, man.
Old school. There he goes, Vernon Glenn. You can follow him out on Twitter at Vern Glenn, VERNGLENN, KPIX out in the Bay Area. And here in Baltimore, WBAL, working with Dino and Jerry Sandusky and those guys at BAL back in the late 80s. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. Boy, we got baseball on Tuesday night. We'll be at Buffalo Wild Wings and Owings Mills, not just on Monday, but Tuesday, back-to-back, doing a little twofer this week. Our best seat in the house, and, of course, our wing eating competition on Monday night, as we do every Monday night. Great prizes there, and giving the limo away as well. And on Tuesday night, we're going to be out watching the Orioles take on the Blue Jays from Skydome, Rogers Center, whatever they're calling it this year. Cito still sucks. I'm sure I'll see some of those signs and those shirts as well. Orioles and the Blue Jays, Game 7 for all the marbles on Tuesday, better known as Game 1 in the wild card game. We'll be monitoring that, as well as the Ravens' road to the Redskins this week. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and anything you miss you can find in the bio. Toyota audio of all 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. Morning newspaper reaches your email inbox at 7 a.m. every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And, of course, Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home with the Sunday Sports Voice from 3 until 5, hopefully getting you ready for Game 1 of the ALDS and the Orioles and the Rangers from Arlington. And I do have my flight set for Arlington. I'm looking forward to going down to Texas for a couple days. So, hey, win this game in Toronto. That's all I've got to say. If you need me, you can find me nasty at WNST.net. And our text service is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. You'll get the breaking news, the scratches. I mean, certainly the Ronnie Stanley news, the Justin Forsett news that came on Sunday morning. All first, all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Streaming live on Facebook Live as well as on our YouTube WNSTV channel, as well as Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and anywhere the internet is served. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.